Poet Laureate, and you know, I was named the Poet Laureate of this county, and so it required me to visit parts of the county that I'd never been to before. And one of the great things about the gig is all the people that you meet. Today at the workshop, Elizabeth mentioned that her goal, because all laureates have a goal of projects or things that they want to do, was to visit all 39 counties in Washington State. And she's made it to 32 so far. And so 7 to go before her term ends at the end of this year. Elizabeth has a book called Every Dress a Decision, which was a finalist for the Washington State Book Award. There's also a CD here, Skin Prayers, which is very good, and those of you who take the workshops with me will probably hear something from that at some point. And it says here, a 6-month solo walkabout in the Andes region of South America led her to focus exclusively on poetry. She earned an MFA in poetry from Antioch University, Los Angeles, and is a poetry commentator for NPR affiliate KUOW 94.9. She makes her living at Seattle Children's Hospital, where she also offers poetry and reflective writing workshops for the staff. And I think that you're going to enjoy what she has to share with you tonight. Please welcome Elizabeth Austen.
A late summer poem. This is called Lilies. They know they're spent. Color blown out, scent disgorged. They've begun to mutter among themselves. They know they're my first, the only ones to make it from bulb to blossom under my hand. Now what? I wear a trail from car door to front door, glancing sidelong at their browning bodies. Mow them down? Let them dry up? They know I don't know. Emptying their daylight bodies, they dismantle the display. Each gathers the necessary darkness, listens for a wind, a wing, with or without me, ready for the next life. Thank you so much, and thank you, Christopher, for inviting me and for hosting this series. Thank you all for turning out. You must not be football fans, right? We're all just going to catch the last quarter, right?
Go Patriots.
Oh, seriously? Don't even go there. But we're here for poetry. So I have a blog, wapoetlaureate.org, and I hope you'll check it out. I'm running a series there right now of poems related to the wildfires in our state. Every other day I'm posting a fire-related poem. If you've written about the fires in our state, if you've been affected by them, if you've thought about them, if you'd wondered what it might be like to be affected by them and written about it, please email it to me. You'll find a contact form at wapoetlaureate.org because I want to hear from other poets in the state about that. As Christopher mentioned, I also produce poetry programming for KUOW, and last week I featured 2 poets writing in response to the fires, one of whom, Kevin Gooden, was a firefighter for 10 years. You'll be able to hear him read that poem at KUOW.org. I also featured a Washington poet named Nance Van Winkle, whose work I really admire. She lives over in Spokane, and I want to read you her wildfire-related poem. It's called The Field on Fire. But it's so far we can't be sure. We pull on rubber-soled boots, still in their partial meltdown from the last blaze. From that pre-dawn, smoked-out, moonlit walk across the embers of our neighbor's pig farm. Tree stumps glowing like Chinese lanterns, the oinkless quiet and the great stench. We pace the ridge, shovels on our shoulders. Then here's a wind to rile the flames. Dangling from helicopters, huge buckets hover above the pond, then dip down. Teacups poured on the rising inferno. Ah, so we see now the tale of the past loops around and falls smack into the drop-jowled mouths of the wide-eyed watchers. As Miss Lone Survivor Pig from the last apocalypse hurtles out from the crackling trees, the question mark of her tail against the blazing backdrop, and the hell-bent rush of her coming at us, like the final page of a story we've read a dozen times, each time hoping it wouldn't end like this. That's Nance Van Winkle. If you don't know her work, I really encourage you to check it out. I think she's a marvelous poet. She's also a photographer, and she does these things that she calls photoems. I can't even pronounce it correctly, but she combines photography with poetry, and they're beautiful. So I'm going to do something I never do, which is read something off of my laptop. It's a brand new poem, and I'm reading it partly in honor of all the folks who were brave enough today to read brand new work at the workshop. So I figure it's only fair that I should pony up with some brand new work myself. So this is called The Teller. Remember that when we used to go to the bank and go inside and talk to somebody? The Teller. I know what you'll see if you look at me. A tired dress, pale face, badly cut hair. You watch my fingers count out the Jacksons. You never look up, not once through the glass. 8.5 hours a day, I wear a name tag, nod politely, and count, recount. You have no idea who I am behind this glass, beneath these clothes. Here's what you don't know. I see you when I pull up your accounts. I note the overdrafts, the small, infrequent deposits, the thrice daily Starbucks charges. I won't tell you how the smell of money lingers long after I turn in the cash drawer key. I won't tell how I carry it, how I spend it on strangers' skins as I shake hands at the party. Hello, hello, how nice to meet you too, as I strip the clothes from what's his name's back. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look. Where our hands touch, I leave a little whiff of old paper steeped in the anxious sweat of 10,000 fingers, folding, tucking, hiding away. No, I won't tell you that as I hand over the bills. Graze your palm. Thank you. I do a lot of teaching, and one of the things I often do when I'm teaching is encourage people to use a word bank, because so often we can feel limited by our vocabulary. And I've recently begun experimenting a little bit with letting someone else's poem be the word bank. So there's a Sharon Olds poem I like very much called Absent One. It's a short poem. I typed it out on the word processor, blew up the font, and then cut up the individual words, and then mixed them up, and then set myself the task of writing a poem using only that vocabulary and all of that vocabulary. So here's what came of it. And I call these transpositions because they're not quite translations. So this is called Dark White Year, based on a transposition of Sharon Olds' Absent One. People have seen, are seeing me as thin petals, one wrist of narrow milk, white, white. You are not always absent, are you? Are you? As for me, I keep telling my one slowly suspended life and flowering the how, until you, forming your dark over my ankles, white stems, branch. you. It's a really fun way to be writing if you're feeling like you have nothing to say, to let somebody else set the constraints for you. It can bring up a whole different voice. So I'm going to read a little trio of poems from Every Dress a Decision. I had the good fortune to hear the poet W.S. Merwin read a number of years ago, and he was talking about something, and he referred to us as a brief and strange species. So this is called Humans. The day begins in disarray. You ought, you should, you must, you must, you must, you must. The bees will not be stilled. What stitches mind to body? Who cues the unraveling? If it's true, we're infused with something not found in doorknob, bird, or bee. Why am I confused about all the important things? Crows trampoline the power lines from house to house. They don't care who runs the world. I gape at the sky, color of sunflower, color of blood. The world is not as I have believed it to be. I find no vantage, no long view across even the surface. Peristalsis propels the worm into darkness. Electricity animates the lamp. The leaf drinks at the top of the tree. I understand none of the beautiful things. The sparrow bathes in dirt. I don't know why. The birds do not ask themselves or each other, how are we to live? They do not ask us to love them. Thank you. This is called Problem Was. Problem was, we lived in a house the size of a subway car. And the problem was, it wasn't just us in there, but a dog bred for long runs on the Alaskan tundra. And he, the man, my boyfriend, he'd need to fight to lay it out, all the real ways I see that now. I disappointed him. Day after day, he'd save it up until evening. It was always evening in that house. Come evening, he'd let it spill, all the evidence of my selfishness, immaturity, laziness, the way I never remembered to fill the tank when I borrowed his car, or which shirts went in the dryer. And looking back from here, I see how right he was, how small and closed-fisted the love I had to offer really was, how inadequate to his need. We fought over all the normal things, where the money went, sex always too little, ill-timed, or incomplete. Who was to blame for that? For letting the dog out? Of course, it didn't help that we'd wait until dark to get down to it, finally worn down beyond the leash of politeness, each of us a fine, steady abrasion against the other. How could we help it? He hated how I drew the tiny brush of liquid lacquer across each fingernail, and I hated how, when traffic in our small city clotted and snarled, how it unnerved him. When he wanted me to dress like the hippie girl I'd appeared at first to be and did not yet recognize, even myself, that I was not. When we fought, he would raise his voice. Nothing inappropriate, no threat of violence, but the problem was, as soon as the simmering tension broke into outright conflict, my blood would slow, heart rate easing back, breath shallow, the weight of my eyelids insupportable. The more he talked, his litany of needs, the catalog of my flaws, the chronicle of his disappointments, it became a kind of lullaby, soporific, setting me adrift on the tundra, swooning into a stupor, sweet sleep cocooning me from every obvious, persistent clue. We were doomed. Livid, he'd shake me awake, and sure enough, I'd deny sleeping. I didn't believe him. Who Who falls asleep in the middle of an argument? So muddled, you understand. So foreign, even to myself. Thank you. So I'm going to close with two more poems, one very short one and then one longer poem. And for those of you who do math, this is going to add up to 4 poems from this book, but I'm a poet, I don't do math, so. This is called How the End Begins. You ask what I think, and all the sparrows abandon the tree. You ask how I feel, the ivy burns up the side of the house. You ask if I love you, and each line erases itself from the map. Shh. Isn't the shiver, the swing, our bodies thrill and flicker, isn't that enough? The girl who goes alone. Here's the thing about being a girl and wanting to play outside. All the grown-ups grind it into you from the get-go. Girls outside aren't safe. That guy in the car, if he rolls down the window and leans his head out, run. Because the best you can hope for is a catcall, and at worst, you'll wind up with your face on the side of a milk carton. Even when you're a grown-up girl, your father, because he loves you, will send you a 4-page article about how to protect yourself while standing at the ATM, while jogging solo, an article informing you how to distinguish phony police and avoid purse snatchers, pickpockets, rapists, and thugs. Tell someone you're going into the woods alone, and they'll story your head with trailside cougar attacks, cave-dwelling misogynists, lightning strikes, forest fires, flash floods, and psychopaths with a sixth sense for a woman alone in a tent. To be a girl alone in a tent is to know that if something goes wrong, you picked the trailhead where the axe murderer lurks, or the valley of girl-eating gophers. If you don't come home intact, the morning will be mixed with "I told you so's" from everyone whose idea of camping involves an RV or a Motel 6. The message is clear. Girls must be chaperoned. So when, at the end of the day, you zip up the tent and lie back in your sleeping bag, fleece jacket bundled into a lumpy pillow under your head, the second you close your eyes, every least night noise is instantly magnified. You lie there, listening, running a mental inventory of any potentially scented item. Did everyone make it into the food bag hung from a tree? Toothpaste, trail mix, chapstick, sunscreen. Fuck. Sunscreen still in your pack, nestled right beside you, where Outdoor Man used to sleep. So you're up, out of the tent, headlamp casting its too bright spotlight, darkening the dark outside its reach as you lower the bag, shove the sunscreen in, hoist and tie. Far enough from the ground to elude the bears, far enough along the branch to thwart raccoons, tree far enough from the tent to keep from signaling the proximity of ground-level, girl-shaped snacks. You go alone, in part, to prove that though Outdoor Man has left you, his body is the only geography he can deprive you of. He can give his muscled calves and thighs, his shoulders, chest, and hands to another woman, but not the Sauk River old growth, snowfields of Rainier, sea stacks of Shai. He can keep you from the sweet, blood-thrilling hum of his body, but not the sweaty, blood-thumping pleasure of a hard-earned panoramic view or high-altitude starlight. The thing about being a girl who goes alone, who goes again and again, is that it freaks the potential next boyfriend. He doesn't want to be out machoed, and he doesn't want to admit it, and he hopes you can't tell. The thing about being a girl who still goes alone is that it proves you don't need him, and no matter how you show him you want him, it's not the same, and you both know it. Zipped back into the tent, you remind yourself you've never been in danger. When have you ever been in danger? Well, there was that boy, but years ago, a teenager like you driving around, bored and pissed at the world, his BB gun and his father's 2 rifles on the seat beside him. Lucky you. The gun he leveled on the window ledge lodged nothing more than a BB in your thigh. The thing about being a girl alone in the woods is you know too much about the grain of truth in the warnings. Even if you seem impervious, weird good luck leaving you so far unscathed, you know the other girls' stories. Your sister, date raped after a party in college. The friend raped by a stranger at knife point. The 2 women shot on the Pinnacle Lake Trail. The singer killed by coyotes in Nova Scotia. The thing about being a girl alone in the woods is you feel like you shouldn't go if you're afraid. If you go, it should mean that you're not afraid, that you're never afraid. Your friends will think that you go unafraid. This girl who goes alone is always afraid, always negotiating to keep the voices in her head at a manageable pitch of hysteria. I go knowing that there will be a moment, maybe long moments, maybe hours of them, maybe the whole trip, when I curse myself for going alone, when I lie in the tent and all I am is fear. But I walk into the wilderness alone because the animal in me needs to fill her nose with the scent of stone and lichen, ocean salt and pine forest, warming in early sun. I walk into the wilderness alone so I can hear myself, so I can feel real to myself. The girl who goes alone claims for herself the madrona, juniper, daybreak. She claims hemlock, prairie falcon, nightfall. She claims nurselog, sea star, glacial moraine, huckleberry, trillium, salal, snowmelt, avalanche lily, waterfall, birdsong, limestone, granite, moonlight, schist, cirque, saddle, summit, ocean. She claims the curve of the earth. The girl who goes alone says with her body, the world is worth the risk.
Let's hear it one more time for Elizabeth. That was great. You know, I never really talked about this, but I mean, we have a personal goal of trying to get all of the laureates that we can at the series. We live in an area, the Northwest, where there are so many that I don't think we're going to catch all of them, but we're catching as many as possible. And we'd like to catch them before, although there have been a few that we've caught after their term came to an end. But yes, so we're very fortunate, and I think you'll see more in the future here at Ghost Town. We're going to take a short break so that you can get some food and drink, so that you can meet Elizabeth and perhaps buy her book or her CD. So we'll see you back here in approximately 15 minutes for more open mic poetry. And if you can't be with us after the break, join us again on October 8th when our feature will be Sarah Webb. Thanks.